Ready. Set. Spartan Race is back for 2018, and we're accepting no excuses. Barbed wire crawls, tire drags, spear throws, and much more. Whatever your ability, you'll discover the right challenge for you. Take on our 5 to 25 kilometre events designed to push you to limits you never knew you could overcome. Complete an obstacle course race and let adventure back into your life. Are you ready to unleash your inner Spartan warrior? Visit spartanrace.uk.
This is The Brain, and you're listening to the Geekcast Radio Network. Yes!
Today on Weekend at the Movies, we talk about more Beauty and the Beast castings, what's possibly in store for fans of horror films, we look at a trailer that had everybody talking this week, and for our main attraction, we will do our first ever Actor Spotlight. All that and more coming up on Weekend at the Movies. That's right, it's Weekend at the Movies, and I am one of your hosts, Optimus Solo, and with me today is Movie Revolt Dan. Hello.
Hey, man, how's it going?
Not too bad. Just the two of us today, not Will Smith style, but just the two of us today. Matt is under the weather, so he will not be joining us. But how has your week been going, man?
It's better now. I started off the week rather sick. I had a really awful stomach bug, but got better, and I've been watching some basketball and, it's celebrating St. Patrick's Day, but how about yourself?
I wish I was watching basketball, but I kind of completely forgot that was even happening. I guess I've just been busy. I don't know. Our work's been crazy because we've been going from, weather-wise, we had a day this week that was 75 degrees, and then the next day it was 42, and it's just been bouncing all around, so it's a lot of calling people off, calling people late, then asking people to come in early. It's like we're changing with the weather, and now it's calling for a slight snow, I think, on Monday. So
yeah, we're supposed to get snow tomorrow too, and we just had like 70s a week ago. I hate March is the worst.
Yeah. So yeah, other than that, everything else is somewhat normal. Just doing a bunch of stuff. Mike and I wrapped up our He-Man. The original 1980 series podcast, so we got through all 130 episodes of that. So we did our wrap-up show just today, actually, this morning. So I've been busy doing a bunch of podcasts today. But, hey, got to do what we got to do. Love talking movies, so that's what we're going to do now, and we're going to take a quick look at the box office first. I don't think there's too much of a surprise from this last weekend. If you guys had missed it, coming in at number 1 was, of course, Cinderella with the weekend gross of 67, almost 68 million. Run All Night, the other new one, came in at 11. Kingsman, number 3, actually came up a spot, up to 6 million more. Focus went from the second place down to the fourth place with just under 6 million, and Chappie rounds out the top 5 at about the same amount that Focus did, actually. Any surprises for you at the box office?
No, it's pretty much what we thought. I mean, Run All Night didn't do as well as maybe I thought. Maybe we talked about last week or 2 weeks ago about how Liam Neeson won't be doing action movies in 2 years, and maybe that will be even sooner because it seems like they're not getting the box office they once were when they're not called Taken. So.
Yeah, I think he said 2 years because he's probably still filming stuff that's coming out yet in
true.
2 years, so he has to give that buffer nowadays. But a little surprised that, well, I guess I'm not surprised, but Kingsman leapfrogged back over Focus, so that's kind of interesting. And Kingsman now is also over 100 million for the year, so that's good for those involved in the Fantasy League. An extra point for Colin Firth and company. So looking at it next week, what do you think is your prediction as far as, is something going to unseed Cinderella, or what are the chances of Cinderella staying number 1 2 weekends in a row?
I don't see it happening. I see Insurgent, which is what they're calling it, right?
Divergent Insurgent.
Or
something. I don't know.
I see that possibly having the biggest opening weekend of the year so far. Possibly. Maybe not as big as, what was 50 Shades of Grey. It was up there, but
yeah, it was up there. And then it made no more money after
exactly. But yeah, I don't think Cinderella. It'll probably, I think, take a decent size hit, maybe drop 50% or so. But I feel like that's...
Do you think it has any shot of coming in at number 2, or
I think
one of the other?
Definitely be number 2. I think the other one is The Gunman coming out. I don't think that'll probably do around what the Run All Night did this week. It's not getting good buzz. I don't know if Sean Penn has the action fans really all that enthused. So I would.
It's his turn though with the Taken genre. So
yeah, I mean it could be a surprise hit. It could be, but I don't feel like it has the trailer Taken did. I think that's a big part of what made Taken great. And Gunman trailer, I even saw a lot of.
No, I haven't seen hardly any advertisement for it. There's even going to other movies.
Yeah.
They haven't been showing. Even before other films, I haven't seen much, and it's weird. I mean, you'd think with Sean Penn and Idris Elba and the people involved that you'd get at least some marketing behind it, but
yeah. The only thing I saw Sean Penn on Bill Maher last week, but that's about it. So, yeah, I think it's clearly going to be Cinderella 2 and Insurgent #1 next week, and my guess is Insurgent will probably hold that spot for at least a week or two, depending, until Fast comes out, maybe.
Right. All right. Well, we will have to wait and see. I wanted to add one little quick thing that we do when we look at the box office, and to go along with our fantasy draft league and everything that we score on, I thought we might as well not just talk about box office, but talk about what stuff is looking at as far as Rotten Tomatoes for the recent releases. So I have some information for that, too, if you're not aware. Not only giving you the box office, but also the scores there. So Cinderella not just won the box office, they're also certified fresh right now at 84%. And Run All Night, the other new opener, is at 59%. A little bit lesser of a release, but the other new one that I know you said that you were planning on hopefully seeing, It Follows, at 94% certified fresh. So It Follows is the top one Rotten Tomatoes as far as the releases this week at 94. Then we have Cinderella 84 and Run All Night 59. Are you surprised that Cinderella is that high?
Yeah, I did not expect it to be that high. I don't know. I guess I would assume it would be around like what Maleficent was, but I guess it did a little bit better. So I haven't seen it, but maybe we can talk about that in a little bit.
Right, and I'm happy because Haley Atwell was in that, and for the first time this year so far, I have somebody involved in a movie that's not tanking at Rotten Tomatoes. So I appreciate that. As far as what you said with the movies that are coming out this weekend, and just in case people are trying to decide what to see, I just saw a message from Hyro on Twitter from True Bromance asking what he should see this weekend. Looking at the Rotten Tomatoes early reviews so far, Insurgent is at 35%. Oof. The Gunman is at 16.
Oof.
So not good opening numbers for either of those. I know you had this on your most anticipated list, but Kumiko the Treasure Hunter, I am right, that was on your most anticipated list, right?
It may have been. I don't remember that one.
I think you had it somewhere, but Kumiko the Treasure Hunter, or maybe I've heard some other people talking about it, is at 89% certified fresh. So maybe that is somehow, I doubt a lot of people have access to go see that, but definitely scoring better than The Gunman and Insurgent. The other one that I'm surprised it's not getting a bigger release maybe is Danny Collins. That's supposed to be opening too, with Al Pacino, Annette Bening, Christopher Plummer, and I believe Jennifer Garner. That's at 56%, so not great numbers, but better than Insurgent or The Gunman. So
still seems like go see It Follows if it's in a theater near you.
Right, or I guess if you haven't seen Cinderella, maybe you should. I don't know. But so those are the Rotten Tomato numbers as well. Getting into the news real quickly, or do you want to talk about the movies you've watched first?
Since we're in box office, it makes sense to go to the news.
All right. So what is your first news story today?
Alrighty. Well, we have to talk each week about, obviously, Star Wars, right? I mean,
it's a rule.
It's a new story each week. And the one that I kind of picked out was regarding who's going to be scoring the next Star Wars film. And I don't know who it's going to be, but it will not be John Williams. So kind of almost like an end of an era a little bit, that Star Wars Rogue One will not be scored by Williams. If you think about any movie out there that's more known for their score, Star Wars is up there. So that's a tough challenge for anyone. And to go along with that, John Williams will also not be scoring the upcoming movie by Steven Spielberg, A Bridge of Spies, which is the last time a movie wasn't scored by Spielberg movie wasn't scored by Williams was back when he did A Color Purple, and it's the only movie not scored by Williams by Spielberg. So kind of crazy that these two iconic franchises or directors that have always been partnered with him will not be using him for these new movies. So it's kind of sad, bittersweet in some ways.
Yeah, two things that this made me think of first. Number one, I guess I didn't realize that John Williams was aging. He's just one of those guys that I guess for me just seemed like he was just forever the same age.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he was 83.
Wow. Yeah.
So I guess I understand maybe why he might not be scoring as many movies, or I don't know exactly what his reasoning was.
The reasoning for at least the Bridge of Spies was because he had minor health issues that caused some scheduling conflicts, but apparently he will be scoring the next Spielberg film, but just not the most recent one.
So maybe you're going to have to pick which ones he does better off, or more selectively. And the other thing that it made me think of was, is the person that takes over the next Star Wars score simply just going to use one of his scores with a slight variation?
That's tough. I don't know if they would get someone, say, like a Hans Zimmer or Horner or someone like that that's established, or go more so with someone who give them an opportunity, like a more of a lesser known name, because it's tough. How do you do Star Wars and do it differently? I guess you wouldn't use the normal music, would you? Since it's a different take. I don't know. That's a big question.
I know at one point they were talking about that he would do and it kind of talks about this a little bit in the article, that he would do the main ones, the episode 7, 8, 9, etc., and let other people do the spin-off movies to kind of even more establish that those are different, that those are their own thing, and that it's not necessarily as connected, which I can totally see. But it's still going to come off weird. I mean, I get the idea behind that, and I think it's smart in a way, but I think it's still going to be weird for people that are just used to Star Wars music hearing anything if it comes across as different. Yeah. So I don't know. Hopefully people are open to it.
It would be I think people would be. I mean, I'm guessing it's going to be scrutinized and probably, I'm sure, run by Williams to make sure he's okay with it. So it's going to be interesting. I think it's really going to make Rogue One stand out differently for sure. So.
Well, and I guess it's also another thing to anticipate or to be excited about when December 2016 rolls around, to see not just what's going to happen with the spin-off movies, what they're going to be focused on, what the plot's going to be, what the characters are going to be, but now we can also be interested in what's the music going to sound like.
Yeah.
So another element to, if there needs to be another element for excitement for Star Wars, we'll give you one there. For my first news story, a lot of people were talking about it, and I'm talking about one of the trailers that I wanted to mention. I'm pretty sure you saw this one because I think I saw a couple tweets from you as well. The trailer for Pixels dropped this week, and a lot of people on Twitter were talking about it. Dan, what did you think?
I think it looks rather intriguing. I mean, when I saw the premise, I'm like, how does it even work? So I was really interested in seeing the trailer and seeing what it's going to be like. And I'm liking it for the most part. Like, I wonder if it's going to be sustainable or if it's going to just go for the cheap laughs. But I thought it looked kind of interesting and it looked kind of fun. It definitely, has a huge amount of nostalgia there. But I kind of enjoyed it. And it feels weird to have faith in an Adam Sandler movie. And I'll talk about one in not too long. But I think it could be good. It could be good. I wish Kevin James wasn't in it, because that makes me fear that he's going to resort to the same jokes over and over again, but I don't know, maybe they can find something interesting and different.
This movie's gone through so many different phases for me, because originally I maybe read something wrong back a year and a half ago, or whenever the first rumors about this movie came out, but originally I thought this was a 100% animated film.
Yeah.
I thought it was just an animated film that was going to somehow take on video games, do something similar to that Wreck-It Ralph and the Lego Movie, kind of in that same vein. And then, later on I was like, oh, it's going to be part animated and part live action, and that always scares me. And especially when Adam Sandler and company are in there, you always kind of have a little hesitation these days, just because it's not the Adam Sandler of old, I guess. I guess that's a whole different discussion for another day, though. But so I was a little skeptical there, and I wasn't sure what kind of blend they were going to do between live action and animation. But that first trailer, I'm back on board, I think. I'm not as skeptical as I was. I liked the feel of it. I thought it had potential there, but I, too, worry about... It's almost like the same type of thing, when you get a bunch of these guys together like you did with Grown Ups, or Grown Ups 2, I think that those were the two names of those films. that you just kind of worry sometimes. You put a bunch of those comedians together, and it doesn't always work. But so far, based on the trailer, I'm somewhat on board. So I don't know. I'll probably still see it right away. I don't know if it'll be like opening weekend type thing. It's not something I'm going to line up for or anything like that. But I'm definitely willing to give it a chance.
Yeah, I guess I like the fact that at least it seems like Adam Sandler is at least trying with this movie. You're going with a script that's not just him on vacation. So
right, I think that's the key, is the setting. So
yeah.
if the setting's not in a island territory or the Bahamas, then you have a chance of it also being a good movie.
Yeah,
it's not just him traveling. So, yeah, but I thought that was interesting. Definitely a lot of people talking about it, and a lot of people seem to agree with us from what I've read on Twitter that they're interested in this one more than they were. So
I see a lot of apprehension. People are like, could this be good? I don't want to. It's like, you burned me once. Sandler will actually more than once, but you know.
Right.
But
you've burned me 10 times. We're way past the fool me once or fool me twice thing. So, Dan, what do you got for your next news story?
My next story, you teased it up front, and that's the idea that the horror fans might be getting an Expendables of their own. Recently, Bruce Campbell was interviewed and talked about that he would have a lot of interest in doing a horror film that was in the model of Expendables. Apparently, it's been long discussed, and he mentioned that like he's friends with a lot of people from the horror genre and think it'd be a great way to get together. And part of it was based upon a supposed sequel to 2008 Bruce Campbell film My Name is Bruce, where like he played a version of himself that gets kind of stuck into a horror film. And the sequel to that was supposed to be Bruce versus Frankenstein, and the idea is like kind of expanding upon that even further. So getting different infamous horror creatures and infamous horror characters and putting them into some sort of movie. My guess is if it's Bruce Campbell, it's going to be more comedy horror, which, you know, I feel like a lot of those horror franchises went that route anyways. You think of something like Freddy vs. Jason. So even someone who's not a huge horror fan, I do really like Bruce Campbell, and I do really love Evil Dead and, that franchise. So I'd be somewhat, intrigued to think they could actually pull this off. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge horror fan either, but I think something like this would at least get me interested. I'd be curious to see which direction they go, because you could go where you have a horror film mashup of more of like the undead or the monster type things. You know, if you're talking about like Frankenstein or Godzilla, Wolfman, those types of things, or if you're going more like a Freddy, a Jason, and some of the more, like, I don't want to call them real people, but
yeah,
you know what I mean, at which direction they go. I would probably be more interested in the Freddy and the Jason and some of those other just like classic more human characters. But either way, I think it'd be something that I'd at least give a shot to, even from someone that doesn't like a horror genre usually. I found it interesting. I didn't see this in the article right away, but that they're also apparently developing an Expendables TV show.
Which I didn't realize that either. I don't know.
Yeah, it says Stallone is developing an Expendables TV show
starring Ken Lutz, because
that just sounds awful.
Yeah, he might be developing it. I don't know if anyone's going to be buying it.
Right.
But yeah, I mean,
or...
my only thought is though, like Cabin in the Woods kind of almost gave us an Expendables, franchise when it comes to horror films.
True.
So could you do anything like that? I mean, there have been comics that have combined a lot of the horror. In like Ash has been one of them. He's even appeared in like the Marvel Zombie universe. So there have been crossovers there that you can pull from. So it could work. I mean, there's been worse things, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. I guess like most things, it comes down to execution. But I think the idea alone is something that's intriguing that most people would at least be interested to see what direction they take it. So
yeah,
we'll have to see if we get more on that throughout the year or early next year if they start going to some conventions and talking to each other. Never know.
Definitely.
For my other news story, I know we just talked about Beauty and the Beast a little bit ago, a week or two ago, but there has been some more casting alongside that film, and I thought it was interesting just based on the people and in lieu of Cinderella just coming out, etc. So we had already talked about Emma Watson being cast as the lead Belle, and that Downton Abbey star / the main star and the guest, Dan Stevens, would be the Beast, and that Luke Evans was going to play Gaston. But now we also know that Emma Thompson apparently will be taking the role of the teapot, Mrs. Potts, and that Kevin Kline will be the inventor, Belle's father, the inventor, Maurice, and that Josh Gad will be the bumbling servant, LeFew. And I didn't know this, but apparently they've got the original music people, too. Oscar-winning composer Alan Menken and Tim Rice will be re-recording songs from the original as well as doing some fresh new material. And we also got information on the writer, Stephen, I'm going to say that last name wrong, but Chosky, but there's a B in there.
It's a silent B.
I don't know how to say that, but he worked on The Perks of Being a Wallflower, so he's writing the script. So apparently they're going to be shooting soon, and that is set for a release date of approximately 2 years from now, so March of 2017. So we're continuing down the Disney live-action road. Maleficent, Cinderella, now Beauty and the Beast, and obviously we last week talked about Dumbo, and we already know that Jungle Book is in the pipeline. So Beauty and the Beast, what's your level of interest with all this information?
It's getting a lot of really talented people attached to it, and I'm getting more and more intrigued. Last week it was like, okay, but the writer, I love Perks of Being a Wallflower. I'm a huge Josh Gad fan. I think he's really funny, great. He has a lot of experience with musicals, obviously, with the Book of Mormon, and getting those composers. I mean, that's also huge. So I don't know this, and especially since Cinderella did really well, even critically. So I think it's the possibilities of this being good is becoming higher and higher.
Yeah, and then I'll talk about Cinderella in a bit, but I think the thing that has me most interested is the composers that are getting on board with it as well, because I really think that the music is an important part to these films. I'm not saying you have to have the same songs that everybody knows. You can have variations, you can have new songs or whatever, but I think that's one thing. Obviously, that's one of the main elements that kind of drove the Frozen craze with the animated side of things. So I think it's good that they're trying to maybe put a little of that into the live action as well. All right, so that's it for our news stories for this week. Some trailers that came out, just in case anybody's interested in watching them, they'll be linked to at the webpage. Infinitely Polar Bear, which we talked about a couple weeks ago as far as the name goes. They had their first trailer drop. And then a bunch of horror films. The Vatican Tapes, Insidious Chapter 3, and Before I Wake had trailers come out. Ride, a comedy starring Helen Hunt, and Alex of Venice. So those are some trailers that you may or may not be interested in. I will say I found the trailer for Infinitely Polar Bear to be pretty interesting or pretty intriguing. So I'm not writing that one off just based off the name. Did you see any of the trailers?
I saw Insidious Chapter 3, which makes me sad because that franchise just keeps going, or series keeps going downhill further and further. And Insidious or Infant Polar Bear, and I agree, it does look kind of, despite the name, does have some promise. All
right. So before we take a break and get into our main attraction, we can talk about what movies we saw this week. So I saw this section's become somewhat weird because I see way more movies than what I'm saying each week because, like you, I think we've been doing some homework and some research into our top 10 list that we've started and we're going to do throughout the year for the half decade. And our next couple lists coming up are comic book movies and animated movies. And I've been watching a bunch of those, but I just keep not mentioning them here so I can withhold my opinions or thoughts. I don't want to give anything away, so to speak. But I have seen, we watched Book of Life, Puss in Boots. I rewatched Wreck-It Ralph. We watched Hotel Transylvania. And we were just getting ready to start Big Hero 6 tonight, but we ran out of time. So I have watched some of these movies, but I'm not commenting on them one way or the other. As far as movies I can comment on, I'll start with, we're going to, I bought my girlfriend tickets to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter in Universal coming up in about a month. that we're going on that. I bought her those for Christmas, and she's a huge Harry Potter fan, so as part of the preparation for going down there, we're actually spending 3 days in the Tampa area just kind of chilling on the beach and whatnot, and then we're going to spend the last 2 days over in Orlando at the Universal Studios. But to get ready for that, we're starting our whole trek through the Harry Potter films. So this last week we watched The Sorcerer's Stone, and I've seen them all once. And I think I've said it before on the podcast that it's very hard for me to kind of distinguish between each film and figure out which is which, because I saw them all once and they all kind of blend together.
Yeah, they do.
So maybe doing it through this time I'll be able to separate them a little bit more. But just looking at Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, the first one, gotta say I really like it. You know, I know a lot of people don't like the actor that first version of Dumbledore, and a lot of people prefer the later version. But being a huge fan of the Count of Monte Cristo, it's the same guy that plays the old priest in that movie, plays the original Dumbledore, and I really enjoyed him in that. I enjoyed the movie overall. I think the only problem I have with it, and I don't believe I can spoil Harry Potter, so if you are planning on watching it for the first time, I guess put your thing on mute for another minute, but the only problem I have is towards the end of the film, and you have a altercation there with Harry Potter and the Voldemort character, as far as, I guess you can call him that since he's part of the other character, at least the back of his head. But I don't have a problem with that altercation for a point, and Harry Potter uses his hands and touches the professor, and it kind of burns his flesh. And there's a couple other things that you kind of don't understand as you're watching it, but then there's a meeting with Harry Potter and Dumbledore afterwards as Harry Potter's laying in the bed and recuperating, and they kind of explain some of that away. And I guess my only problem with the whole issue is his one explanation for why his hands burned the other guy's face was because his mom had left a mark on Harry, and kind of explains it away as the mark of true love. And that because he had been marked with true love, his hands were able to burn this guy's body. I don't know. I have a problem when cartoons and movies overplay the whole power. I can hear Huey Lewis. Is it Huey Lewis and the News? The Power of Love song from. Anyways, that's not what I hear in my mind whenever I see that on screen. But I don't know. I have somewhat of a problem with that being the explanation for why that happened. But outside of that, I think it's a pretty solid first entry to the franchise. So I'd probably give it a 4 out of 5. I think it's enough to get you intrigued in the whole setting and in that world. I think it does enough world building, but not making it boring. So you've watched all those films, correct?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, definitely the first two, which I think are done by Columbus. They're certainly more kid-friendly, obviously, because they're younger and they get a lot different as they grow older. So, I mean, I think it works as a kids movie for sure. And I think, like, that issue that you're having, I think when it gets to the later films and gets into, like, the reasoning behind it, it makes a little bit more sense than, he loved you, mom loved you type of stuff. So I think it does set the groundwork a little bit. But, yeah, it's been a while since I saw it. I remember thinking, after watching the, Prisoner Azkaban and all those, that it's so weird watching those two since they're so different tonally than the later films, that they definitely almost the production design and everything are nearly identical, but just they feel a lot more kid movie, which it makes sense considering the age of the people that are in the movie.
Interesting. Well, I'll have to look for those types of things then as we make our journey through here, watching, hopefully getting through all of them before we head down there, and that way everything will make a lot more sense to me, and I won't just be the person following them along blindly as we look at all the stuff from the movie. What was one of the first films that you saw this week?
Well, I hinted to it earlier, and we were talking about Adam Sandler, and he already had a movie that came out this year. I guess it's technically a 2015 film. It was, I think, released in some festivals last year at TEF. And it's The Cobbler, and I think we talked about the trailer. You guys talked about the trailer previously in Weekend at the Movies. It's a film starring Adam Sandler, written and directed by Thomas McCarthy, And in the film, Sandler plays a cobbler. For those that don't know, that's a person who basically fixes shoes. He's like he's a middle-aged man living in New York City, and he's running the shop that basically has been passed down to him from his grandparents. His dad worked there, his grandparents, great-grandfather. It's this kind of tradition. Well, to make things a little bit more complicated or magical, as you would say, one day he finds out that there's this hidden shoe mending machine that if he uses it on a shoe, when he puts those shoes on, he can then literally become that person. He's literally walking in their shoes, per se. You know, that old fable. So he can kind of become that person in every way. People look at them and they think whoever owned those shoes, he looks and acts, sounds just like them. So that leads him on these different adventures, and the different things go on. This movie's getting, like, hugely panned. I think it has, like, an 8% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Ouch.
And you would think, oh, it's because it's Adam Sandler. And it's not. Adam Sandler is one of the better things about the film, honestly. It's like the understated Sandler performance where he's not doing these crazy characters. He's really just kind of playing the schlub of a character. I think he does at least give a decent performance. It's not his best by far, but I think he fits the character well, and he at least is doing something different, and is, you know, at least showing that he's putting an effort in. Like, you know, he's not just walking through it. And I guess I didn't nearly hate it as much as a lot of people did. I thought the premise had potential, and I liked the idea, and I think it started decently strong, at least within the first third. The last half or last third gets completely crazy. This ends up getting in this gangster plot, and it becomes purposeless near the end, and the motivations behind what he's doing are really weak, and it's kind of ridiculous, and mostly I felt like it didn't use its concept all that well or do much interesting things with it. And this is coming from Thomas McCarthy, and I didn't realize that going in. Maybe that was the issue. Like, I was going into it thinking it's an Adam Sandler movie, not Thomas McCarthy, and he's done nothing like huge hits-wise, but he directed and written Win-Win, which is a movie I really adore. It came out a few years ago, starting about Paul Giamatti's playing like a wrestling coach. He also did The Station Agent about a decade ago, which stars Peter Dinklage. Is another movie I really like. And interesting, like, those movies are like a really small concept and kind of just about drama, and he hits them really well. His characters are always really well written and well made. And this one, like, everyone besides Sandler is just kind of ridiculous and kind of a cartoon. It reminded me a lot of, like, tonally kind of something like Click or Bedtime Stories in a way. Okay. It felt at times like a kid's movie. But then there are some changes and some humor it goes for. It just feels out of place and just kind of mean, or just, I don't know, it just doesn't really work. It's such an odd movie and such I don't know, it doesn't know what it wants to be. I hate that criticism of a movie, but I think that's certainly fits here. And I don't know, it just falls apart in the last third. It has all these connecting dots, and I think mostly it doesn't really give a really great conflict for Sandler. In the situation he's placed into is just kind of weak, and it's almost like we didn't know where to take this character, and we want him to learn a lesson, and so we're going to put him in a situation that is so mangled and so force-fed, and it's just a disappointment in that end. So I didn't hate it. I gave it a 2 out of 5 because I think there are some things I like there, but it's just weird that an Adam Sandler film fails, but it has nothing to do with Sandler. It has to do with everything else that's around him. So
that is interesting, because that's not usually the case when people pan one of his films.
Yeah.
So, all right, so cross that one off the list of things I don't need to watch in 2015?
I mean, unless you're desperate or have nothing else to watch, maybe it's on Netflix, but I don't think it's something you really need to seek out. I would say save your money and go see Pixels. All
right. Well, I will try to give you the same advice for a movie I saw this week, which I believe is also a 2015 film. I actually just finished watching it today, started it yesterday. We have a weird schedule because my girlfriend has a job where she's on call at night, so there's a lot of times where we start stuff and then she gets a call and she has to leave, so then we pause the movie and come back to it at a later time, which can lead to some interesting viewings. And I don't think it would have mattered if we would have watched this straight through in pieces or what, but I'm talking about the movie called Vice, starring Bruce Willis and Thomas Jane.
Interesting. It's not taken off of Miami Vice by any chance.
No. It is instead a combination of surrogates, gamers, RoboCop, and something horrible. And then if you put all that together and then add Thomas Jane's expertise in the acting field, man. Okay, so the basic synopsis here is that Bruce Willis is like this business technology mogul, I guess, and he's created this company called Vice, because that's a great name for a company. And the company is basically like a virtual reality type entertainment company where you can go to this, I don't know if you really want to call it a building, it's like a freaking complex. And you go in here and apparently it's pretty expensive, I'm guessing, so I'm guessing you have to put down a pretty penny there. And you get to experience these things with these other like AI individuals who they call like replicants or replications or something. I wasn't paying that much attention to what they were called. And basically you're just experiencing like stuff you can do. It almost has like, I guess, a sense of like The Purge almost to it, because you can just do whatever you want. You can kill these people. There's lots of, sexual connotations to what's going on in this place, almost like it's a brothel / I don't know, like party / bar. But basically you can do whatever you want and you're not going to get in trouble for it. Kind of like let out all your steam or your crazy whatever feelings or thoughts, and then you can leave supposedly a better person and not have to do that in real life, because that's a thing. And then these AI characters, I guess I'll call them, every day they're reset, so they have no memory of what happened to them that day. Because otherwise they basically have emotions and feelings and whatnot, but they basically reset their memories so they don't remember any of the bad stuff that happened to them during the day. And if they were shot or beat up or whatever, there's like this team of people that repair them and fix them so they look back to normal. And, Bruce Willis's concept is that he's the one leading this, and he obviously wants he has ulterior motives. He wants it to eventually be used as like, police. There's police ways that you could use it. There's military, types of things that you could do with these things. So he's trying to basically hedge his bets and protect his investment so that it could possibly be used down the line for, military purposes, police purposes, or whatever. And then you have Thomas Jane, who is playing a kind of rogue cop who hates this place because he's saying instead of people going into it and getting everything out of their system and coming out better people, that they're going in here and becoming slaves to this and doing it over and over again, to the point when they come out, they're not separating the line of reality and this virtual reality, and then they're doing things that he has to clean up the mess for in real life. Anyway.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot for one movie.
Yeah, and what happens is one of the replicants, I guess, escapes. So then there's just this mad hunt to try to track her down, because if she's loose in the real population, they could be exposed for this, that, and the other, and she eventually comes across the programmer that programmed her and that built the whole system before he kind of got on the outs with the company. And he apparently created this individual based on his dead wife, to the point that she even looks like her.
A little creepy, but all right.
This movie has so many problems, it's ridiculous. First of all, this technology company apparently has also hired like a SWAT team to protect their investments and go rogue throughout the city and kill people whenever they want to. And it's so ridiculous. Like, there's this police, or these whatever, I will call them the SWAT team here, that's trying to hunt this lady down. And they'll be like in a chase, and some random like totally innocent citizen will just be on the same area, not even in the way, and they'll just shoot them too.
It's like Grand Theft Auto, just kill whoever you want.
Yeah, so they'll just shoot them too, yet this girl could be running in the complete open, and they cannot hit her with a gun. So, I don't know. This movie is awful. Thomas Jane is an awful actor in this movie. I haven't seen much else of what he's done in his life.
He had the TV show Hung for a while, which is pretty good. I do like him in The Punisher from 2004.
I knew a lot of people liked him from The Punisher, and I don't remember if I've seen that or not, but he is bad in this film. And I don't know if it's him or if it's just the dialogue that was written for every character in this film, because whoever wrote the dialogue should never be allowed to write again. I honestly can't decide if I would give this movie a 0 or a 1 out of 5. It's that bad. I don't know why Bruce Willis signed up for this, but don't watch this unless you are the biggest sci-fi fan in the world. And they even do, I'm just going to, spoiler alert, they even do a RoboCop where she's about to kill somebody and she physically can't because it's in her program that she can't pull the trigger. So that'd be cool and clever if it hadn't been done before, but it's literally straight out of RoboCop. So I don't know. This movie's terrible. So what else have you seen?
Again, another 2015 movie I saw, and it is a movie I guess I can lightly recommend, I would say. I'll get into it, but it's called Road Hard, and it's starring Adam Carolla, and I don't know if you're familiar at all with Adam Carolla in any way.
Yeah, I remember him from some TV stuff. I mean, I don't know much of what he's been doing the last 5 or 10 years, but I know who he is.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people know him from The Man Show, and this, like, Road Hard kind of follows, like, is very much based on his real life. And I've listened to his podcast here and there. I can kind of take him in small doses. And what this is, Road Hard is obviously, is kind of like inspired by his life in a lot of ways. So if you know him at all, you've kind of heard a lot of this before. And in it, he plays a comedian who is kind of in like the downward spiral of his career. He was once famous from this show called The Bro Show, obviously reference to The Man Show. And
right.
His partner in that show, who's played by Jay Moore, has become the headliner of a network talk show. His career has taken off, while Adam Carolla's is kind of struggling, and he's having to basically make ends meet by doing road shows and being a comic, and he's living in his garage because he divorced his wife, and his wife has the house. So he's seeing the polar opposite of success as his once friend and once counterpart, and it goes through some tribulations where you see him trying to basically, find out what he wants to be. And I guess the issue with the film, my major issue with it, is that I think Carolla's funny, and he can, he has some interesting takes on things, but the movie itself almost, like, he's just a person of circumstance. Like, nothing that bad, like, he's almost like powerless in his success, he's powerless in his failures. Like, is he failing because he's narcissistic and he takes himself too seriously so he won't get these roles? Or is he, is it just not there anymore for him? Like, it doesn't really seem to want to take a stance on why he is where he is. Like, or is he just, I don't know, like, it feels like being the fact that he is making a story about himself, like, he's almost unwilling to look at himself in a negative light all that much. Like, he'll look at some faults, but not them all. So it just seems like everything that happens has nothing to do with him. They're just outside forces that are controlling him in some ways. Like, he's going to get this TV show. He didn't do anything for it. It's not like he learned a lesson or he did something. It's just because it came up and someone else said he should do it. So it's just, it feels like because of that, there's almost no stakes there because, like, what are you looking for? But that changes a little bit in the third act where he has, like, a choice to make. And the issue, it ends up devolving into, like, a romantic comedy because he starts this relationship up with with a character played by Diane Farr, who does her best to try to lift up Carolla in this relationship, in the fact that Carolla can be a decent comedian. He can work as an actor in that realm. But once he enters into trying to be a romantic lead, it doesn't work. It's just really awkward. There's this romantic montage where if I just showed you it, I would just showed you that clip, you would think it was like a parody from The Man Show, because it just feels so just awkward and not genuine. And that's, I guess, maybe my biggest takeaway from it is that this is a real life story. This is his story, but it doesn't feel like it comes from a personal place. It feels very generic. And the movie I was kind of reminded of when I was when I was watching it was from a few years ago, done by Mike Birbiglia. He did a movie called Sleepwalk with Me, which is similar, where it's based upon his stand-up career and his life. And there's some similarities there, but I felt like his film was much more interesting and superior in the way it approached its topic, and it felt more honest, where it feels like this one is a little bit more unwilling to kind of go into the more difficult places or say anything that would be like recognize the faults of its own characters. And the other thing that kind of bugged me too was that like everyone that is in the film is played by like someone that's somewhat famous or something like that. But yeah. But I mean, I thought like there were some funny parts. Corolla does have some good comedic beats, and there's a few scenes in the diner between David Alan Grier and him and some other actors, which are pretty funny. And I think they're, at least when it comes to looking in insight to the business and what it's like to be famous in that situation, it's kind of funny, and it's kind of a interesting angle to take. But overall, it just feels like it could have been a better movie. Adam Carolla did a better movie in The Hammer, which came out a few years ago, which was similar, based upon like inspired by his life, but a lot different. It's about like a boxer, and that was actually quite good, and he was much better in it than this. And he was part writer and director for Road Hard, and I don't know. Maybe it would have been better if it was taken by someone else and someone else took the material. It feels like the personal touch almost hindered its success rather than helped it in this situation. Though, I mean, I could recommend it if you're at all a Corolla fan. If you're not, I probably would say maybe stay away, because I don't think it's gonna change your mind or really give you anything that you're gonna think, oh, this is worth me watching. But if you like the story, you know the story, it's at least it falls in line with what you expect from Corolla. And
you said you'd slightly recommend it, so what does that translate?
I gave it like a 3 out of 5, a very light 3 out of 5. It's like a 2.75 out of 5. So I gave it a 3 out of 5. So yeah, it's an average film that could have been better. But I honestly, instead of watching that, I would say watch Sleepwalk with Me, which if you're a fan of like movies about stand up, there's also like some other classics, but more recently, like I think that's the movie I kept thinking about. Well, that did it so much better and handled the material in a much more interesting way.
Gotcha. All right, good information there. My final one for this week, outside of the ones I can't talk about, would have been the one I saw in the theater, which was, in fact, Cinderella. Obviously, I don't need to tell you what the story's about, or the plot synopsis, or anything like that. Obviously, it's a reinterpretation or it's a live-action version, but I really shouldn't say that it's a reinterpretation, because it is probably about the closest you can possibly come to just creating a live-action version of the animated movie.
Interesting.
It was directed by Kenneth Branagh, who probably a lot of people are familiar with, and I think he does a really good job of directing it. I think he balances things very well, and he paces things pretty well so that it doesn't feel slow, because I think that's one thing that is hard to do when you take an animated, something that's famous for being animated. Obviously, it was, a lot of these stories are based on other things, whether it be fairy tales or books or different things like that Disney's adapted. But when it's most known for an animated version that, includes a lot of humor, that sometimes includes songs, I'm not just talking about Cinderella, but just Disney stuff in general, I think one of the hard things to do when you turn that into live action is to control the pacing and to make it as entertaining and as interesting as people are probably expecting, whether it consciously or subconsciously. And I think that's a big hurdle, and I think Kenneth Branagh does a decent job with that. He does a pretty good job of creating the pace and the interest level so that you're not ever bored or looking at your clock and stuff like that. If you're looking for a movie that is basically a retelling of the animated film, I think you're going to like this. If you're looking for any type of like new interpretation or different type of like backstory or, more development on a certain character that you didn't get from that, or just some type of completely different take, then you're going to be disappointed. So I guess it completely depends on what you're wanting and what you're expecting from the film. Most people are giving it rave reviews, obviously, And right after I saw it, I said that I would probably be at like a 3.5 out of 5. My only issues really is that and I'm not saying that I need an all-out musical or I need the actual actors to be singing or anything like that, but they don't even use, like, instrumentally in the background any of the music from the original Cinderella. And I don't know if that needed to be like a main thing, but I think just subtly in the background it could have been used at some point, or even like variations of it. They wait until the credits are rolling and then they start playing the main song from the animated film. And to me, I think it would have just helped add another level to the film if the music would have played a bigger part into it. So I guess that's nitpicking, but that's like one of my only complaints. Lily James is a great casting for Cinderella. I think she fits that perfect. Cate Blanchett, I think, is great as the stepmother. Richard Madden as the prince, I think that's one of the most entertaining princes I've seen from a Disney film, because so often they're just completely cardboard characters. So I liked what he brought to that role, and the interaction and the chemistry between Lily James and Richard Madden is believable from the get-go, so I like that. I know some people had a problem with Helena Bonham Carter as the fairy godmother, just because I think it was jarring for them to see her in a non-Tim Burton film.
She's not all in black, so it's got to be kind of weird.
Right, but I think she pulled off the fairy godmother rather well, and I think they did a lot of interesting things from a visual standpoint with because obviously you're dealing with a situation where in the animated film you have a pumpkin transformed into a carriage, and mice and various animals transformed into people or things that are usable to that plot. So you had to deal with that. And I think the way they did that in this film worked perfectly. That's probably the highlight of the film for me, is that whole scene with the fairy godmother turning everything into, the carriage and the horses and everything, the coachman, etc. I think that worked really well. I think there were some really brilliant touches to that part. Obviously, the glass slipper was done really well, as we saw from the first teaser that came out for this film. So, a lot of stuff worked for it. I personally would have given it a higher score if I would have gotten maybe a slightly different interpretation, or maybe something added to at least one part of the story, or one part, or a character or something, to give me a little bit more than just a retelling of the entire animated story. I'm not saying it's bad for doing that, but me personally, I would have liked that.
So do you... Because of that, do you enjoy Maleficent more, since it does give you a little different interpretation than Cinderella?
I enjoy parts of Maleficent more. I enjoy the idea that what they were going for in Maleficent maybe more, and kind of the risk that they were taking. But there was a lot of stuff that was handled better in this one than it was in Maleficent. Even like the mice, and like I'm saying, like the fairy godmother and that type of thing. The mice were some of the better parts of the animated film. Gus and Jacques or whatever, like they were funny. They were, a humorous and entertaining part. Even those are handled well in this film. Whereas in Maleficent, you have the fairies, which are god awfully handled.
Yeah, like
that's still got to be one of the worst parts about that entire movie, among other things. But so I think stuff was handled, like, if you were going across the board, more consistently well done in this one than it is in Maleficent, but I do respect the risk that they went for there. I would like a combination, honestly. I would like the risk of giving a new interpretation on something, but handling it like Kenneth Branagh did with this. I did think Gisela and Anastasia easily able to hate. Not that you can't hate those characters, but I think it could have gone even a little bit more to the extreme on this film.
Yeah.
But really, that's my only nitpicks. Maybe a little bit of a different interpretation I would have got me a higher score, and maybe a little bit more use of the themes and the music. But overall, like I said, 3.5, which if you're scoring on a 10 scale would be a 7, which is higher than I've given most films this year. So it's rising to the top, or towards the top of my top 10 so far. So. If you're a fan of the animated film, I would say go see it. If you're a fan of fairy tales, go see it. If you're looking for anything that's going to be like Maleficent or Alice in Wonderland or anything like that, I would say you probably are going in with the wrong expectations.
Yeah.
So,
Alrighty, I have one more movie that I watched as well, and it was one based upon kind of a recommendation or assignment that you gave last week as we're trying to get geared up for our final list, and kind of
Excellent.
watching a movie that I've yet to see that came out from 2010 to 2014 that Kevin recommended last week. If you haven't heard it, was August Osage County, which I always feel like I say this name wrong. I don't know why. I'm like, is it Osage? No, August Osage County. And actually, interesting enough, I ended up picking it up at my local library. It was,
oh wow,
yeah. I ended up going there, and they have a lot of movies that you can get for free. And well,
you've unlocked something there.
Yeah.
Who ever thought libraries?
I know. And my wife's like, if only you would go to the library and get movies. I'm like, yeah. But they ended up working out well because there were some animated films I wanted to watch for our list that were not streaming that were available there. So it was actually a very well worth it trip. So, for those that don't know, Osage County is based upon a play by Tracy Letts, and it stars Meryl Streep, Julia Roberts, Ewan McGregor, and a trillion other different people. And it's based upon this family that ends up getting together after the father goes missing. Meryl Streep plays the mother, who has cancer, is a drug addict, is pretty much all worse for wear. The first thing that's really noticeable about the movie is that it is chock full of really great performances, for sure. It was nominated for 2 Oscars. Julia Roberts and Meryl Streep both were nominated for supporting actress, and I think deservingly so. I know it's like almost a cliche when it comes to Streep, when it comes to nominating for Oscars, but I think in this one it was deserved. I mean, both of their characters are big. These are big performances, but I feel it fits in what they're doing. And really, the cast in itself is really strong, and like everyone tends to get a scene or a moment where they really get to kind of show their stuff. And it's the one thing though with this movie, it is a tough watch in the sense that a lot of bad things happen, and these people are not very likable.
No, not at all.
No, they're like the thing I kept feeling like, it's like if you go over a friend's house and your friend's parents are arguing, and you just feel that awkward feeling. That's like the entire movie.
That's a perfect explanation of that.
It's that awkward feeling throughout. You're just like, I don't feel like I should probably leave. I should probably go. It's hard. Like, I guess like there is it feels like Tracy Letts, who the only thing he's done Bug and the play Bug, and this is also based upon a play, and he also did Killer Joe. I did see Killer Joe, and I like Killer Joe a lot. I think I like Killer Joe more. Killer Joe has one of the most disturbing scenes I've ever seen involving a chicken bone, and if you saw the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But even with that scene, I think August Osage County is a tougher watch in the sense that it is very, very depressing in that way. You're not going to feel uplifted throughout, and not necessarily a bad thing. It definitely handles some really dramatic material, and I think I'm glad I saw it. It's the performances in itself are worth seeing. I guess my only like real issue is like I just wish there was something I could latch onto, or something where I felt like all these arguments and all these like horrible things were worth it. And all I could think of the entire time is like, these people should just never talk to one another ever again. They should just go away. Like it just felt like there's a lot, and it keeps kind of like there's more and more as it goes on. It's almost like a season worth of like storylines of a soap opera in like 2 hours. I mean, handled much more astutely and a much more fine hand, but it's a lot. Like there's a lot going on. It's tough. Like it's not a movie you're gonna necessarily enjoy. I respect it. I think the execution's well. I think the performance, the script is pretty strong. I just wish there was something there that made it felt like this was all for something. Like it felt like all this heartache and all this grief, like it led to something. And I don't know if I necessarily got that. I needed some sort of reprieve. I mean, I'm glad it didn't like try to be like some sort of like cheap comic relief, but I don't know, just something where it felt like, okay, like there's a family unit in here, even despite all the craziness. I didn't have that, but I gave it. I ended up a 3.5 out of 5, 4 out of 5, around that range. Definitely a good movie. Like I said, not a movie you're gonna see on a Friday night with all your friends. But it's if you're looking for like to see why Meryl Streep's such a respected actress, and I was glad to see Julia Roberts doing a great performance again. Like she tends to go back and forth, but I thought she was fantastic. I thought in all around really, it was quite good. Like everyone was like, these are really big characters, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing in this situation. I think it fits the material.
And I think that everything you're describing and explaining is also why I'm so on the fence of this one when I'm trying to decide where it falls for me.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot that I like you said, respect about the film. But I agree, it's a tough watch. I think for me, it's weird because if you're looking at an extended family, like this couldn't be further from my extended family. Like I somehow have been blessed with like an extended family that had literally not one member has ever fought with another member. Like we get along scarily well, and everybody enjoys family get-togethers. It's not like something like, oh God, I got to go spend whatever with my in-laws or my uncles or aunts or whatever. But at the same time, that's when I'm talking about my extended family. When I'm talking about my immediate family, I did grow up in a household where, the dad was obviously gone at one point. And I'm not saying we were ever this, like the people in this film, but I can relate to some of the stuff between myself and my siblings, growing up in a one-parent household and kind of dealing with some of this. And, so some of that I could connect to, even if it was on a much more extreme and exaggerated level. But I guess I did respect the idea. I think what I came away the most with this film was a sense that, like you said, it wasn't trying to do some cliched thing. It wasn't trying to take an easy way out. The thing that kept going through my mind after I saw this back the year it came out was that was a real movie. Like it was about real. Like there was no Hollywood ending. There was no happy ever after. Like it was like real, whether that's good for the for the audience or bad. That's kind of what I came away with.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't pull its punches. That's for sure.
Right.
I guess maybe my only issue with like the realness was that maybe like one or two of the like storylines or plot developments, maybe they could have held back on those to go for more of the real angle. I'm thinking of some of the surprises near the end of the movie.
Yeah.
But I do I agree. I think it's not at all your typically Hollywood film. It's bleak. It's bleak with a purpose, I guess.
Right. And I don't want the listeners to think that I have ignored your homework that you gave me. And Matt, you had wanted us to watch the Secret of Kells. And that is something that we will be talking about, but since Matt is out sick this week, I wanted to be able to talk about it when he's here. So we're going to save that conversation for a week. So I will have double homework because I believe you have another film for us, or for me.
Yeah, for you. I don't know if Matt would like this as much. And it's currently streaming on Amazon Prime, so it should be for free, so it should be easy to get. And it's my favorite film, or at least my number one film from last year as of right now. I haven't gone back and redone my list, but it's Starred Up, starring
Excellent.
Jack O'Connell. When I talked about the movie, I said I probably like it a lot more than I should, just because it has what I like from movies. But I'd be curious to hear what you have to say about that. Again, another movie that's a pretty tough watch, but I enjoyed it, so I'd be looking forward to hearing if you like it or not.
I'm glad you gave me that one because it's been on my list for so long to watch, and I don't know what's been causing it to keep getting passed over. So this will give me a firm reason to watch it here in this next week. So I enjoy that. So I will definitely be giving that one a watch. You've said that you've watched a lot of animated films in preparation for our list coming up, and I know you were trying to make sure you had seen a bunch of things, so I was going to try to give you an animated film, but I'm not sure if within the last couple of weeks you've seen this or not. So if I say something that you've already seen, I apologize, and I will pick something else. But the first one that came to my mind, which is available, again, sorry, but it's available on Redbox currently, and that was just from this last year, so if you've seen it, let me know. But I wanted to get your take on Book of Life.
I have yet to see the Book of Life.
Okay. I always say his name wrong, but
we call him Gizmo del Toro because it's easier to say.
All right, so Gizmo del Toro, and I know that you are somewhat of a fan of some of his other stuff. And again, I saw this one, and I'm still debating with myself on where it falls for me. I think it was better than I expected it to be, and it's definitely a different type of animated film. So I just, if you're used to, which obviously you're more well versed, but if you're like the typical person these days that all you're exposed to is Disney or Pixar or DreamWorks type stuff, it's going to be a little bit different feel. So I was wondering if you would watch that and give me your take on Book of Life.
Definitely was nice. That too was on my list to watch as I'm trying to go through all the animated films, so I will definitely check it out.
Perfect. All right, so we are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be giving you our main attraction, which we're doing something new this week. We're doing a actor spotlight, and this week our actor spotlight is going to be on Will Ferrell. So if you're a Will Ferrell fan, stay tuned, and we're going to be giving you lots of fun stuff about him coming up right after the break.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Hi, this is Greg.
This is Chuck.
And this is Dan, and we are Talking in Circles.
Because the world needs another podcast, we are here as Geekcast Radio's newest edition.
And as the title says, each week we get lost in conversation about a wide range of topics, including movies, comics, games, art, TV, and even occasionally sports.
We play games and discuss pivotal topics like who would win in a fight, the Kool-Aid Man or Tony the Tiger, and examine the hot-button issues of the world of geekdom.
We keep things fresh by taking timeless topics in new directions.
We are simply three friends having a fun time talking about life's most fascinating foibles.
Stay connected with us every Tuesday on iTunes or at geekcastradio.com.
Can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen. Cannonball! Ah! Oh my God! Santa here? I know him. I know him.
Dear Lord, baby Jesus, or as our brothers to the south call you, Jesus, we thank you so much for this bountiful harvest of Domino's, KFC, and the always delicious Taco Bell.
This burrito is delicious, but it is filling. Anthony and Cleopatra!
What an idiot! Oh, what a loser! Good.
Are you crazy? I just got back from an orgy. Some guy named Steve's house. I'm exhausted. I mean, my wiener said to me, Jackie, I've had enough of this orgy. Put me back in your underwear.
I'm gonna get you drunk. Get you drunk off my lady hump. My lovely lady hump.
Excuse me, you're under arrest.
Okay? What? You have the right to remain silent. Anything you do or say can be used, what's the next part?
As a flotation device.
As a flotation device. Oh, you know what? That's very funny.
On the Simplistic Reviews podcast, we talk movies. We talk TV. We talk...
Hello, Julie, what the heck are you doing?
Trying to make our spots sound more exciting by adding explosions.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you could have got the point across with sound effects, not the real thing.
Download the show on iTunes or at simplisticreviews.blogspot.com.
I'm sure your insurance company will cover that.
No, they won't.
No, they probably won't.
Now back to the show. Do you see how your patience paid off?
All right, thanks for sticking with us. As I said, we're going to start something that we call an actor spotlight. We are going to do this probably again multiple times throughout the year, because another thing that we're doing in our top 10 list after we do all our genre lists is we're going to be looking back at our top actors and top actresses from the last 5 years, the half decade. And in doing that, this can help us maybe prepare a little bit for that. It also just gives us a fun way to look at some actors and actresses and kind of break down their careers and the good, the bad, and the ugly about them. And it's an idea that Dan and I had that we're finally getting to explore a little bit. And the way we're going to do this that we came up with here is we're going to look at Will Ferrell. We're going to kind of go through his career a little bit, kind of his filmography, not in like a lot of detail, but briefly. And then together, the two of us, we're going to try to come up with, see if we can come up with a consensus of his top 3 films and his bottom 3 films over the course of his career. Then we're going to finish it up just real quick to tie back into that list that we're going to do. We're going to look at what he's done in the 2010 to 2014 range, and then we are going to give basically a percentage chance or kind of like an over-under odds of if he has what it takes to possibly be in consideration for the top list for the decade. So, Dan, any thoughts about Will Ferrell before we get into his filmography, kind of just what your general opinion or bias is towards him?
I will say I am a fan of Will Ferrell. I do find him funny, beyond just like his movie career. Like I thought he was great on SNL. I like a lot of what he does, like skit-wise and stuff with Funny or Die. So I will say going in, I am a fan. I know some people aren't. Some people don't find him funny, but I am one that tends to enjoy mostly everything he does.
Okay, well, real quick then, we'll just kind of, obviously everybody knows, so we don't need to go over a lot of detail, but obviously a SNL background, one of the guys from Saturday Night Live that really kind of found his groove there and was involved with a lot of the different Saturday Night Live films in smaller roles. We're talking about, with Mike Myers and some of the Austin Power films, Night at the Roxbury, Superstar, The Ladies' Man, all those types of things. So that was kind of his earlier career. Then probably the first thing that really got him out there, I don't remember how big a role, because I actually haven't seen this film. How big a role was he in Zoolander? Is that just a bit role?
He was like, his character certainly was a standout, but he was like, he was a side character. He wasn't, Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson are the more leads, and he was more of a everyone's odd in that film, but he was even more of an oddball in the situation. So yeah,
right. Okay, so that means basically he really burst onto the scene then in 2003 as far as a lead actor, and that was with a duo of films there with Elf and Old School that he appeared in both in 2003. More of a lead, obviously, in Elf. And then he got into the Anchorman franchise as he started that off. Appeared in Bewitched and Kicking and Screaming in 2005. Then we had The Wedding Crashers, voice work for a couple different things. And we had the Talladega Nights, Stranger Than Fiction, Blades of Glory. He got into a whole athletic thing there with Blades of Glory and Semi-Pro. And then later on in the 2000s, Step Brothers, Land of the Lost, voice work for Megamind, and then more recently, The Other Guys, some dramatic role in Everything Must Go, and then The Campaign, The Internship, more voice work in the Lego Movie. Overall, he's stuck mostly to comedy with the exception of a couple of those animated films. I don't know if he's done anything more kind of just drama-wise other than Stranger Than Fiction and Everything Must Go. Have you seen him in any other like non-comedic roles?
He was in. I think those are probably the most notable one. Like, he's had some side things here and there. Winter Passing in 2005. He wasn't as comedic. It was a little bit more serious, but it was more of an ensemble cast. He wasn't like the main actor in that film.
Gotcha. All right, well, let's just look at it here and throw out some films that we might be in consideration for. Let's start with the bad side of things so we can end on a positive note. So with the bad, what's a film that you would throw out there for consideration that you think at least we should consider for one of his worst films?
One of the first ones that comes to my mind is one that just, I don't think necessarily, I don't know if bad's the right word. Maybe bad is the right word, but it was, I think I could see maybe where they were trying to go with it, but it was just a rather big failure, and that was Bewitched. It was just, playing, it was such a weird idea where you were doing the TV show inside of the movie, and it just, I don't know, it just to me was overall just a failure, and he wasn't really a great fit for that role. And it just, I mean, him trying to do something a little bit different, but overall it was just kind of a forgettable film, and something that just I think was one of the biggest early flops of his career, or one of the biggest detractors when he first started. That was like his first major roadblock when he was kind of hitting his stride.
Yeah, that Bewitched holds a 25% over at Rotten Tomatoes, so they agree with you somewhat. It did make $62.3 million, but I don't think that's probably what it was hoping for back in 2005. So I think that's a good one to consider. I'll throw one out there, too. Maybe the first one that comes to my mind would be from 2009, Land of the Lost.
Yes.
That one is real close to what you just suggested, since Bewitched is a 25%, Land of the Lost is 26%. It only made $49 million, which for a comedy is, I don't know, that's probably not what they were hoping for again in 2009. And I just, that year we had Year One and we had Land of the Lost. Yeah. And man, I watched the TV show back in the day with my sister and brother and cousins, so I'm familiar with the TV show, and I knew it was a comedy, but I don't know, that was hard to watch for me.
Yeah, it was. I remember watching, there was a Man vs. Wild episode where like he went on the show with Bear Grylls to promote Land of Lost for some reason. So like, I mean, I don't know. It was, that's the first thing I think of when I think of that movie. But yeah, that movie was just similar to Bewitched. It just didn't work at all, and then he didn't really fit that character, or it was just too oddball and didn't like. It just wasn't funny. It just was just really just a poor execution all over the place. I think it was, again, the name. Like anytime he's done a movie that has like a huge name recognition or is based upon like an old property, it tends not to go well for him.
Yeah, he needs to stay away from things that were TV shows back prior to the 80s. What else do you think we should throw out there for consideration?
I mean, it's kind of cheap, but it was one of his first major roles, and it was an SNL film based upon popular characters, and it's Night at the Roxbury, and I think it's just an example of sometimes some SNL characters don't warrant movies, and I think that was the case there. I get what they were trying to do, but like those characters, they don't talk at all, and trying to build a movie around them, it didn't really work. It's not awful. I don't think it's as bad as Land of the Lost or Bewitched, but it just, if you're looking at roles that like, it was maybe him trying to stretch a character too far, I felt like that was an example of that.
All right. I think I can agree with you on that one. Another one I'd like to throw out there for consideration, I kind of put these two together, but I'll just throw out one of them here, and that would be the Internship, from just a little, that was just recently, 2013. And I think that's another one that just didn't work up like it could have or like it should have. Did you see The Internship?
Yeah, I don't even remember him in that. I can't even think of what character he played, because I know Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn were the main leads. I don't know if he played a side character. I can't even place him in that.
Yeah, he was a very bit character. I guess that's kind of falls into the Night at the Roxbury motif a little bit. So maybe we'll put Land of the Lost and Bewitched ahead of those. So if we're still looking for a third one, what else would we consider? I got Semi-Pro.
Yes, that like Semi-Pro and Blaze of Glory were two that I considered, and it was like you said, that sports phase he went through. I think Blades of Glory is a better movie than Semi-Pro. Semi-Pro is just, I don't know. I don't know what he was thinking in that one. It like, you can see maybe it came from an idea of like loving the ABA basketball, but it was such a mess. And
so TV shows from prior to the 80s and sports-themed shows or movies he should stay away from.
Yeah.
I too think I would put Blades of Glory as a slightly better movie. Not that Rotten Tomatoes is the end-all, be-all, and I don't want to become a broken record with it, but they agree with us because Semi-Pro is at 21% and Blades of Glory is at 69%.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Blades of Glory had some moments that I thought were funny. Blades of Glory was a disappointment, and I thought it could be funnier, where I thought Semi-Pro was just not. It was just unwatchable in some certain spots. So
we have Land of the Lost, Bewitched, and Semi-Pro. Anything else that can compete for one of those spots?
The only other thing I thought, I don't think it's as bad, because it's just kind of, it's just forgettable. It was him trying to do in a kids movie, and it was Kicking and Screaming.
Yeah, I had that.
Again, another sports film where he plays the coach of a soccer team, or son's soccer team.
Yeah, I consider that one too. I had it written down as a possibility. I also had the Campaign written down.
Kicking and Screaming is bad. And Campaign is just, I don't know. Campaign to me is similar to that of Blades of Glory, where I don't think it's as funny as it could have been, but I don't think it's awful. So I would say no. I would think the other ones are worse than Semi-Pro and Bewitched and Land of the Lost are far worse than those other films.
All right, so I think we found our bottom three there for Will Ferrell. You let us know if you agree or disagree, but we got Land of the Lost, Semi-Pro, and Bewitched. So let's switch modes here. Let's talk good about Will Ferrell and the movies he's been in. So those things are the things that haven't worked. Old TV shows and sports-themed movies. What has worked? What's one that you'd want to throw out there right away for top three?
Well, I guess I'll start with maybe his most... I guess it's hard to say what his most iconic character is, but to me, one of his best characters, at least, and one of my favorite comedies, and that's Anchorman. I know there's been a lot of backlash to that movie, and I kind of see it. It's weird, wacky. The sequel wasn't as good, but I don't know. I still have a soft spot for the first Anchorman. I think it's rather hilarious, and I thought that was him kind of Will Ferrell at his best, being like showing his range as a comedian and doing a lot of just crazy, wacky, and unique things, and I think his performance as Rick Burgundy is pretty spot on and pretty fun. So I think on the comedy side, at least, it's one of my favorites.
It's interesting that Rotten Tomatoes actually scores the sequel better than the original one,
which is
but obviously
weird.
Go ahead.
Which is just weird.
But obviously it was successful enough and had a good enough following, and people liked it enough that it had a second film, so that does speak to it. I'll go with another character that always comes to my mind right away when I think of Will Ferrell, and it's a movie I didn't see right away when it came out, but I saw it years later, and then I understood why people liked it so much. It's actually, I believe, his highest-rated Rotten Tomatoes film. Take that back. His second highest-rated Rotten Tomatoes film, and that would be the movie Elf. As far as like a instant Christmas classic for some people, I think this one falls into that category as something that a lot of people in our generation do watch now on a yearly basis at Christmas.
Oh yeah.
Do you like Elf?
I do. There's a lot of great quotes from that movie, and
right.
Really from a lot of his movies. But yeah, I do, and just his ability to be so gleeful and just so genuine, it's just crazy. He does work as this like oversized kid. I don't know. I do like Elf.
I would not want to be an actor that's trying to film any scenes with him. Ask Jimmy Fallon. I would be that guy that's just constantly laughing. Like, how could we take this guy serious? All right, so we're considering Anchorman and we're considering Elf so far. What else do we want to throw in the mix?
I think for me, if you're going to ask me what his best movie is, best overall performance, it's more of on the dramatic side, and that's Stranger Than Fiction. Yeah. I think he's definitely more low key in that film. It's really just the movie itself. It's kind of off the wall, and I think it's a really interesting idea, and I think it works really well. And he just plays like a normal guy, but I think he brings a little bit of charisma to it as well. So to me that is one of his top three best performances and best films is Stranger Than Fiction.
And I do think that it's a good thing to try to include another side of his films rather than all just the straight comedies. And obviously, like I said, the two that come to mind are Stranger Than Fiction and Everything Must Go. And I would say that Stranger Than Fiction is the superior of the two. So I would be in complete agreement with Stranger Than Fiction. I love that film, so that's definitely one that I would put up there. Another one that I think, well, I'd like to throw two out there that are maybe fan favorites, and I want to get your opinion on where they fall in the films that we're talking about, and that would be both Step Brothers and The Other Guys. Where do you feel like those fit in?
My first watch for Other Guys, I liked it a lot. Second watch, it kind of went down a little bit. Step Brothers, the first time I watched it was like okay, but the more I watch Step Brothers, the funnier and funnier that movie becomes. And just John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell together, it's a combination that's just magical. So I like both of them, but I find that Step Brothers has more rewatchability, and I think it's more reliant upon Will Ferrell. And I guess I find the relationship between Ferrell and Riley more interesting than Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg. Though I did like that movie, I find myself gravitating towards Step Brothers more. I don't know about you.
Maybe it's a kind of a symptom of me not rewatching the other guys yet. I don't think I've seen that a second time. I really did enjoy it the first time, but for some reason I don't think I've ever rewatched that film. So maybe that's why I still kind of hold it in high esteem, because I haven't had it go down on a rewatch. It's currently his third highest rated film with a 79%. But I do agree with you when you're talking about the rewatchability of Step Brothers. That's something that you can throw in time and time again. And like you talked about Elf being quotable.
Yeah.
Step Brothers is definitely quotable. And I think it's hard because then you get into Elf is different because it's more of a family friendly, it's a holiday type movie, and obviously Stranger Than Fiction shows the drama side. And then we have to start comparing like Step Brothers, the other guys, and like what you said before, Anchorman, because they're all kind of similar as far as what they're going for in the comedy. So I don't know how. Me personally, I probably put Step Brothers above the other two, but I think you were saying that you kind of have more of a personal connection to Anchorman.
Yeah, I do. And the question, part of it is other people in that film as well. Just if you're looking at performance-wise, I think he's a huge part of it too. But it's also that ensemble cast is great. It's
right.
So if you're looking at which one is more reliant on Ferrell in his performance, I would say Step Brothers. I think it's equal part. Him and John C. Reilly. So I would probably put that. I would put personally Anchorman as my more preferred film, but if I'm going based upon role, I don't know. It's tough. I think Ron Burgundy, I think, is such a great character. So but I don't know. I could go either way. I was almost trying to lean towards Step Brothers, but the more I think about it, I think Anchorman, but I don't know.
So do we have it down to those four? Or is there any movie that we're missing?
The only one I could think of when you're talking about fan favorites, I know Old School is out there, definitely for sure. Talladega Nights, Ballad of Rick Bobby, I don't think that's as prevalent. I think that's, it's respected, it's liked, but I think the other films tend to be ranked higher, personally. I think that's when the relationship with Riley and Ferrell started, and that blossomed. And a lot of Ferrell films, I think, get funnier on rewatch because they pack so much into them.
Right.
But to me, it's down between Anchorman, Step Brothers, everything.
Stranger Than Fiction and Elf.
And Elf, yeah.
Should we ignore his highest rated Rotten Tomatoes film?
Which would be
the Lego Movie.
I guess voice work because he's done a lot of voice work, but I don't know. I feel like yes, I would because that's
not one that comes to my mind when I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Will Ferrell.
Or if I think the Lego Movie, what's great about it, Will Ferrell's 50th on the list on that.
Right.
Not that it's a bad performance, but there's just so much else that go into it than him.
Okay, so I don't know if we'll be able to get down to a top three, but I think we've for sure gotten down to a top four with Step Brothers, Anchorman, Stranger Than Fiction, and Elf. You'd be happy with that as a top four, right?
Yeah, if I had to, I would probably. It'd be between Elf and Elf and Step Brothers.
That's hard.
I'd probably take off Step Brothers since Elf is really all Ferrell in a lot of ways, but I don't know. It's tough. I like them all.
So we'll have to have the fans help us out on there because I go back and forth on that too. I'm probably not as big on Anchorman as you are, but I still understand why, and I don't argue with that at all. So I think it becomes down to which performance personally you like the best out of those, but maybe the fans can help us out, or the listeners, and tell us what the top three should be out of those four: Step Brothers, Stranger Than Fiction, Elf, and Anchorman. Looking at his most recent films, and the way I wanted to do this was basically just kind of treat it as stock here, the Will Ferrell stock, and as we're looking at the last 5 years and his chances of, being on our list later on, or his future as an actor, do you feel like the Will Ferrell stock is on decline, Is it rising, or are we stuck in neutral? The last 5 years here, we've had we had The Other Guys and Everything Must Go, but that was as far back as we went. Then we had Megamind, The Campaign, Internship, Anchorman 2, and then most recently the Lego Movie. So what do you feel with Will Ferrell's stock? On the decline, rising, or stuck in neutral?
I mean, he's also done Casa de Mi Padre, which was, I feel like, was an interesting experiment. Doesn't necessarily work out all that well.
Mm-hmm.
Is it on the decline? I don't know. It's hard because I feel like a lot of what he does is outside of movies. So if we're, I think like he's got a lot going on besides that. But if you're looking straightly at film in the last 5 years, Anchorman 2 was a somewhat disappointment. The Campaign didn't really live up to what it could be. Everything Must Go was enjoyable, but I don't think it hit the level of something like that we talked about, Stranger Than Fiction. So probably the best movie in the last 5 years was The Other Guys. So he hasn't had a movie that was both financially successful and critically successful since then. So I would say, if anything, it's probably on the decline if you're strictly looking at movies. That might change this year with Get Hard coming out, though I've heard mixed reviews, though I don't know. I think it could be funny. I don't know. It feels weird. It's like having faith in an Adam Sandler movie and Kevin Hart movie. Just doesn't seem like I should do that. It just doesn't seem
No, it seems like it's risky. And again, that's another reason why we picked him as our first one, with Get Hard about to come out, and also with his news stories recently with the spring training baseball.
Oh, yeah.
Making all the rounds there. So, I mean, he's doing a lot of stuff. He's actually producing a lot of stuff now. And I don't know if maybe he's switching more to that mode and going to do less films or what he's going to do. But I'm kind of with you. I'm looking at what we were picking here. And, Step Brothers, Stranger Than Fiction, Elf, and Anchorman are all outside of the last 5 years. That's all older stuff. And like you said, outside of The Other Guys, and if you want to count his role in the Lego Movie, he hasn't done as much here recently. So I guess if I have to pick, I'm going the same way you did, kind of teetering between the kind of stuck in neutral and on the decline here. So like you said, maybe things will change, but maybe we've seen the best we're going to see of Will Ferrell. I don't know. So as far as that goes, anything else on him or his film career, anything that you think, is there a role out there that you think you'd be dying for him to play? I couldn't come up with one.
No, I can't really think of one. I do see in his filmography, or his IMDb page, that there's a potential that he'd be in a Shakespeare project, which would be interesting. I don't know. I wouldn't mind him doing, maybe not specifically a role, but doing something along the lines of Everything Must Go again, where it's more of a tragic character. I would like to, see that, because I think he has I think Everything Must Go was had potential to be something, and I thought he was good in it, but it just didn't completely come together. I did like that movie overall, but I would like to maybe see him try to go the dramatic route, maybe once or twice again, or partner again with John C. Reilly, because I tend to like everything they've done together.
Yeah, I can support both of those, either more drama or kind of going back with some of the people that has worked well with him. I also see that he's listed as a producer for the Flintstones in 2016. Is that an actual film, or is that the long-rumored TV show?
I believe it's supposed to be the TV show, but I don't know. I know that WWE Films just released Flintstones direct-to-DVD cartoon movie, that if you really want to see, you can start.
They also did a Scooby-Doo movie last year too. WWE, they're making the rounds.
Yeah.
All right. Well, looking ahead then to the weekend, like we said, as far as movies that are coming out this weekend, it's Insurgent and The Gunman. Maybe you'll be able to see Danny Collins if you're in certain areas, or maybe you can go back and see some of the films that are getting better reviews from this past week, like Cinderella, or what's the horror film name again? It Follows.
It Follows, yeah.
Right. As for Blu-ray and DVD releases coming out this next Tuesday, so right after this weekend's over, you have a bunch of stuff actually coming out. The Hobbit, The Battle of the Five Armies combo pack. You have The Unbroken combo pack. And you have Into the Woods, along with Song 1, which I did not see, so I'm not sure about that one. But out of those, anything that you think's willing to put money towards?
Well, no. I'm kind of glad, though, because there are movies I didn't see in theaters. I haven't seen a lot. It's the first time I haven't seen a Lord of the Rings movie or Hobbit movie in theaters. I skipped the last one. So I will be at least renting it, and I wanted to see Unbroken, but I ended up missing it out. I ended up choosing other films, so I will check that out. But I've heard I was hoping it'd be better, but it seems like it got panned pretty hard. So I'm not having high expectations.
Yeah, I can see what you're going for that. And then I don't want to completely ignore it. There are some other smaller films that are being released. I'm guessing a lot of them are going to be released on demand or straight to video or some type of streaming service. So you have Accidental Love, starring Jessica Biel and Jake Gyllenhaal and Tracy Morgan.
Yep, that's currently available on demand.
Okay.
And
you have Tracers, which I believe is starring the dude from Twilight.
Oh, yes, Taylor Lutz.
Yes.
Yeah, it's available on demand, too, if you hate yourself.
All right, so some other stuff that's probably available, The Walking Deceased.
Don't know what that is.
I think that is a scary movie type thing on The Walking Dead.
Oh, great.
So that sounds terrible. She's Lost Control. There's that played at a bunch of festivals. There's one that we couldn't pronounce when we were talking about the trailer way back when, a couple weeks ago, but Viggo Mortensen in Waha? Jauja? I don't know how to say that word. So if you're a Viggo Mortensen fan, you got that. From the creators of God's Not Dead, you have Do You Believe, starring Sean Astin, a couple other people.
I didn't mean to laugh, but I did.
You didn't, but you did.
Yeah.
A movie called Spring, which actually has a great Rotten Tomatoes rating. It's in the 90s, I think, or maybe even 100.
The question is that based upon like 2 reviews?
It was based off of 13.
That's not that bad. That's pretty good.
So I gotta say these next couple here. Zombievers.
Wow.
I don't know what that's about, but I just like the name of that. And I guess if you're a horror fan, there's also one called Ghoul out there that you can seek out. So have fun perusing your on-demand services for any of those titles. As far as a question for next week, I wanted to ask, I had something for him, and basically since we did our first actor spotlight on Will Ferrell, I just wanted to ask the people out there that are listening, who else would you like us to cover? We're going to do this off and on throughout the year, so if there's someone that you'd really like to see us kind of break down the good and the bad, we'd be all for it. Obviously, hopefully it's somebody that has somewhat of a filmography that allows us to do that, and not somebody that's only been in like 3 or 4 films.
Yeah, not Daniel Day-Lewis. That's like Lincoln, and that's about it.
Right? That'd be a harder one to go through. So give us your thoughts on what you would like us to cover in future actor spotlights. Anything else from you, Dan?
No, I got nothing. Oh, no, yeah, I'm good.
Are you sure?
Yeah. We did the recommendations already, so we're good to go.
All right, so we will look forward to possibly covering some of those movies that I said are coming out. I don't know what we'll see this next week. There's so many good options according to Rotten Tomatoes, so we'll see what we come up with for next week. But thanks as always for joining us this week here on Weekend at the Movies. Obviously, you can go to geekcastradio.com, find the episode post, and comment on there. We did have a bunch of comments last week regarding our Star Wars question as far as what you would like to see or hear for the next spin-off movies. A lot of book references there, some character references, Film for Fun, and Jedi Disaster talking about Darth Maul, and some more stuff covering him. Jedi Disaster specifically talking about Dark Nest, Broken from Star Wars Legacy, Darth Maul Shadow Hunter. Those are obviously all books. And I, Jedi. There was another Justin Washington talking about doing genre films, maybe like a horror film based in the Star Wars universe. And then that got off onto the zombies in Star Wars. You said you had bought a book about that and haven't read it?
Yeah, it was Death Troopers or something like that. It's supposed to be like a random Star Wars story of a spaceship that with stormtroopers where zombie virus gets broken into or something like that. I don't know. I bought it at for bargain for like $5, but maybe you have to read it. So
interesting. It sounds like a video game that's already out there, actually.
Yeah. The cover looked interesting. As they say, judge book by covers, so I bought it.
That is the saying, I believe. And then Brian Jackson also talking about maybe something along the lines of the Knights of the Old Republic storylines.
You love that game.
Yeah, so that's definitely a good game there. Nobody mentioned anything necessarily specifically about Boba Fett or anything like that, so apparently some love out there for something concerning Darth Maul. And one other person did say anything involving Jedis, so as long as we were talking about some of maybe the history or the future of the Jedis, that would be something they'd be into. So, like I said, good stuff there from everybody, and hopefully we can get some input as far as what actors you'd like us to talk about on a future episode. You can also visit the Facebook page by searching out Geekcast Radio Network, and Mike will keep you up to date on everything we release there. That way you can know when the next Talking in Circles comes out, you can know when the next War stuff comes out, and all that kind of fun stuff. You can follow Twitter at Geekcast Radio for the network. Dan, what's your Twitter?
At Movie Revolts.
And mine is at Optimus Solo. And I think that does it for this week. So we will see you next weekend for another episode of Weekend at the Movies.
You know what I just did? I just walked out that door, saw a couple detectives, and I was about to start bad-mouthing you behind your back. But I stopped myself because my pops taught me that a man who talks behind somebody's back is a coward.
Wow, I actually appreciate that.
Good, because I'm going to tell you directly to your face.
No, you don't have to.
No, I don't like you. I think you're a fake cop. The sound of your piss hitting the urinal, it sounds feminine. If we were in the wild, I would attack you. Even if you weren't in my food chain, I would go out of my way to attack you. If I were a lion and you were a tuna, I would swim out in the middle of the ocean and freaking eat you. And then I'd bang your tuna girlfriend.
Okay, first off, a lion swimming in the ocean? Lions don't like water. If you'd placed it near a river or some sort of fresh water source, that makes sense. But you find yourself in the ocean, 20-foot waves, I'm assuming it's off the coast of South Africa, coming up against a full-grown 800-pound tuna with his 20 or 30 friends, you lose that battle. You lose that battle 9 times out of 10. And guess what? You've wandered into our school of tuna, and we now have a taste of lion. We've talked to ourselves. We've communicated and said, you know what? Lion tastes good. Let's go get some more lion. We've developed a system to establish a beachhead and aggressively hunt you and your family. And we will corner your pride, your children, your offspring.
How are you gonna do that?
We will construct a series of breathing apparatus with kelp. We will be able to trap certain amounts of oxygen. It's not going to be days at a time, but hour 45, no problem. That will give us enough time to figure out where you live, go back to the sea, get more oxygen, and then stalk you. You just lost your own game. You're outgunned and outmanned. Did that go the way you thought it was going to go? Nope.